Ariana Grande is so lovely. When we walked in, she was really welcoming. She was like, oh, this is my mum, blah, blah, blah. We sit down and we're getting to the end of the interview and Guy has no filter. And he just straight up goes, you're actually a really nice person. Like, there's all these things about you saying that you're a diva, blah, 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 but you're actually very chill. Now, when this happens, the entire room, which was full of record company people, managers, her mum, they all start moving in to like shut down the interview. And Ariana Grande goes, no, I would like to answer this question because I am sick of people saying this about me. Hello, welcome along to A Little Bit Extra. This is your escape from the shit show that is planet Earth. My name is Sharyn and I am so nervous for today's episode. So I think I was having a day a few months ago when we first started the podcast where I was just feeling annoyed. I'd heard from like a friend who had done an interview with somebody and the person was a dick and I was like, oh, why are people dicks in interviews? And I was feeling a little bolshy and I started talking about how I have no problem naming and shaming people that are awful in interviews. And people have asked me ever since, they're like, when are you doing the episode about your best and your worst interviews? I'm like, but I'm scared because I'm a people pleaser. So I'm going to do it. I've decided I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it with a prerequisite that I understand that people have bad days. I understand that people have problems going on in their life, which means that sometimes they are in situations where they are dicks. I understand that. But these are my experiences and I'm going to share them with you. I'll start off with my best interviews because I think that a lot of times, a lot of celebrities get a bad rap and people call them divas and things like that. I have interviewed so many people across my 20-year career. I love nothing more than when people on TikTok that have never done one interview in their life with a musician tell me exactly how that process works. It just brings me so much joy. But I love when you get a celebrity that ends up being a humongous star right at the very start of their career. And I got that with Lady Gaga. So Lady Gaga came out with Fame. It was when she had Just Dance had just come out. Poker Face wasn't even on the radio yet. And she was going to be coming to New Zealand with the Pussycat Dolls. So I got to interview Lady Gaga on the phone and she was epic. She had absolutely no don't asks. She had nothing that was jaded to her. We asked her things like, what did your first song sound like that you ever wrote? And she sang a little bit of it to us. She sung down the phone to us. She answered every single question and she was so much fun. But she also at the end of the interview thanked us, and she thanked us by name. And it's always really interesting when people do that in interviews. You don't expect it, but when they do, it's kind of like, I think the same experience when you use somebody's name when they are serving you in like a customer service realm. So it was kind of like, oh, thank you. And she was like, thank you so much for having me and for your well-planned questions and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, someone that respects that we actually prep for these interviews. Thank you so much, Lady Gaga. The funny thing was she came back. She came to New Zealand about a year later and she was on our breakfast show at the same radio station. And they asked her questions that by then she was the biggest pop star on the planet. She was like, I'm not answering that. Like, why would I don't want to answer that. Like, it's like me asking to hear your first radio show ever. And she was kind of jaded by it by then. And I was like, oh, she's changed. But then once she landed in New Zealand, she asked for a pop radio station to be put on. And by pure luck, because there's two to choose from, the pure luck was that the person that was driving her put on The Edge. And at that time on The Edge, the breakfast show, JJ, Mike and Dom, they were saying, Lady Gaga, we heard you've landed in New Zealand. Welcome to New Zealand. If you want to call the show, like, this is our phone number. No one calls when you do that. Like, it's a real 1 in a million chance. Lady Gaga gets the phone of the local record company guy and calls the radio station. She then does a half-hour live interview with the breakfast show. Just like fully took over. And it was just like phenomenal. But that was just who she was. And she was so cool. And I think she is definitely in my top interviews of all time, purely because she's just so all about the fans, and I love that. There is something to be said, though, I think, and my husband, who does the same job, he agrees as well. The bigger the star, the nicer you are. And they're more confident in what they're doing. They also understand how, like, the big machine works and stuff like that. I've been disrespected by New Zealand bands that have had one song that has been added to a radio station and gone pretty well. I've been disrespected more by them than someone that is legit rock and roll royalty. It's wild. And another great example we had of a behind the scenes moment was with Ariana Grande. So Ariana Grande at the time, she was in Sydney, and my co-host at the time, Guy Clint, and we were in Sydney doing a week of shows, interviewing people every single day. It was so awesome. And we went to interview not Lady Gaga. We went to interview Ariana Grande. Now, at that time, Ariana Grande was getting a bunch of diva accusations because, of course, she's a woman in pop, and she was getting it non-stop. Even things like you're not allowed to film her on her left side or her right side, and you can't ask about this and you can't ask about that, blah, blah, blah. So we walk in and we're like, oh God, like, what is this going to be like? Because I've got Guy Williams with me, a comedian who is like out the gate. And we were all so intrigued to see what side the camera would be on. And we walk in and we notice straight away that all of the allegations about about Ariana Grande was that she didn't like having a camera on her left side. But then we walk in, the camera is on her left side. So we were thinking, okay. So we do the interview. Ariana Grande is so lovely. When we walked in, she was really welcoming. She was like, oh, this is my mum, blah, blah, blah. We sit down and we're getting to the end of the interview, and Guy has no filter. And he just straight out goes, you're actually a really nice person. Like, there's all these things about you saying that you're a diva, blah, 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 but you're actually very chill. And everyone's saying that you don't like to be filmed on your left side, but you've been filmed on your left side this entire time. Now, when this happens, the entire room, which was full of record company people, managers, her mom, they all start moving in to, like, shut down the interview. And Ariana Grande goes, no, I would like to answer this question because I am sick of people saying this about me. And they were like really nervous, like, oh no, like they're overtouched. She's like, no, I want to answer this question. He has asked me respectfully and I want to answer this question. So we're sitting there like, oh my God, this could have gone so badly. Ariana Grande then answers our question and she goes, people just say shit like this all the time. And I just have to accept that that's what happens to women in pop music. And at the end of the interview, she was like, do you guys want to get a photo? So we got a photo with her. She met one of our listeners that we had taken over with us. And then what was really cool is that she said to us, thank you for not being scared to ask that question. And it was just really cool that she even did that. It was, I don't know. It was one of those moments where you think the media can so easily make someone sound like they're a total asshole. And Ariana Grande was epic. She was so, so cool. Another person who was really cool but and very controversial at the moment is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. I have never personally interviewed, but I have gone with my husband when he was interviewing him. And the first time that we went to interview him, Bryce was so nervous. I was filming him on like I think they were called like flip cams or something. It was like, it looks like an iPod. It was hilarious. And we were in a stairwell and Bryce does the interview, and at the end I take a photo of them, and then he says to me, he's like, do you want a photo as well? And he was just like so kind and as if I was part of the interview. And then he signed a bunch of stuff for Bryce because he was really taken aback by how much effort Bryce had put into his interview questions. And he even signed a Nirvana album, which he doesn't really do anymore. But the funniest thing is that a year later, Dave Grohl came back with the Foo Fighters because that tour had been here with them Crooked Vultures. And he comes back for that tour. Bryce goes to interview him again. And he's like, oh, where's your girlfriend? She's not filming us this time. And remembered Bryce's name, remembered where they'd interviewed and all that sort of stuff. And kind of just picked up where they let off. And he's interviewed him so many times since then that they now kind of have this friendship where there's even been times the Foo Fighters have come to New Zealand and they've said, we'll do an interview, but only with that guy. And so Bryce has been the person that gets to interview them. But Bryce has got this amazing photo of going to like a party when they were doing an album release party in Sydney. And he went along with Kim, who was the head of Sony in New Zealand, absolute badass, and one of my best friends, Taryn, at the time. And they've got this photo that someone snuck of Dave Grohl, and Bryce is like down on one knee and Dave Grohl's just tipping Jägermeister down his throat. It's so great. But on that same interview, I didn't know who this guy was. The very first one for them Crooked Vultures, we were standing in the hotel waiting for our turn. And this old man walks past me, literally walks and stops, looks at me, my face, looks at my boobs, looks at my face, looks at my boobs, looks at my face and goes, with a smile on his face and kept walking. And Bryce had just come back and I was like, what? I was like, that guy's an absolute creep, blah, 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 blah. I was like so mad. And Bryce goes, he can look all he wants. That's John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. And I was like, oh my God, did I just get checked out and get boob approval from someone from Led Zeppelin? Let's fucking go. To be honest, I didn't know who I don't even know a Led Zeppelin song, but it sounds cool and lots of people like wear their t-shirts. They sell them at Cotton On, so that must mean they're a big deal. But it was freaking amazing. Just to like throw names out there, Griff, who is an upcomer, absolutely freaking amazing. The Veronicas, Will Ferrell. Oh, Will Ferrell, I've interviewed Will Ferrell twice, and my like behind the scenes tip about Will Ferrell is always look and see what he's wearing on the bottom half, because most of the time if it's going to be something where he's only filmed on the top half, he was like wearing real nice shirt, he's all done up, looks beautiful, then he just has jandals and like a pair of boardies on because you can't see below. But he is so fun, and the really cool thing about him is that he's really polite and like really kind and really grateful for people's time, and I think that that's just another definition of the bigger the star, the nicer you are. Funniest behind the scenes interviews. So I've got two that I'm trying to think which one. Okay. The funniest one to me was, remember Flo Rida? And he was in that, he's got so many bangers. Like, he must be the rapper that like Jay-Z and that joke about, but he came to New Zealand. And this is like when Right Round was massive, Low was massive. He had a sold out show at Spark. And he comes in, and I was music director at the time, so I'd kind of like organized the interview for our breakfast show. And he walks in with this like posse of people. And anytime Flo Rida says something funny, they all just being like, good one, Flo. Like, even off mic. And then, like, you go into the studio and they're like, what's up, Flo Rida? And he's like, what's up, New Zealand? How's it going? And then the hype people are like, in the background. But this happens, like, all the time. And then I'm sitting outside, completely taken aback. I'm like, this is the best energy I've ever seen in an interview. Like, this guy is amazing. And then, as I'm standing there, this little guy who turns out to be his Flo Rida's personal assistant bursts out of the studio, comes up to me, puts a hand on my shoulder, and he's like, hey, Sharyn, you got a towel? Flo's about to sweat. And just looks at me like dead set into my eyes. I'm like, pardon? He's like, I need a towel. Flo's about to sweat. And I'm like, what do you mean he's about to sweat? Like, you can predict when he's going to sweat. And he's like, yeah, and he's about to sweat, and he doesn't like to sweat on camera and interviews, just on stage. I was like, oh, okay, fuck. So I had to, like, go try find a towel. Somehow, one of the girls that goes to the gym before work had arrived, and she hadn't used her towel yet. I was like, can I please borrow your towel? Flo Rida is about to sweat. I take it back, and he's like, song starts playing and he's like, Flo, turn around, you're about to sweat, and like dabs him down and stuff like that, gets him de-sweated, and he goes back in. It's like, what is life that you have a person that predicts when you're about to sweat? Then the funniest shit ever, everywhere he goes, his personal trainer goes with him as well. So as he finishes the interview, he walks out, he opens the door, shuts the door, the personal trainer has peeled a banana for him, and he's like, potassium, and gives it to him. Flo Rida's like, thanks. And he's like, starts eating his banana. And he just has this person. And that is why celebrities are so ripped and so skinny, is because they had something that's literally like, potassium. Have your potassium. It was the funniest shit I have ever seen. And it makes me laugh so much when I think about it. It was just the desperation in this guy's face when he's like, Flo's about to sweat. Like, it was the biggest deal of all time. It was just so funny. But Flo Rida was super, super lovely. It was hilarious. Such a great human. The interviews that I will never say no to, there's so many, but like the ones that I always remember having the biggest laughs after is definitely Coterie and Solemio. They are two people, if I ever get offered an interview, I will never ever say no to Solemio or Coterie, because every single time I end up just having throwback my head laughs with. They're so funny. And another one was Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran came and he was supposed to just do a like half-hour takeover of our show. And Ed was having such a great time and all these fans turned up and they were supposed to just be like outside the station. He was like, can they come in? And we were like, well, if you're comfortable, it's your security risk. So he lets like 30 fans in to watch do the radio show. And he goes to us, he's like, I'm having such a good time. And this is off air. And he goes, and he walked in and I was like, hi, I'm Sharyn. He goes, I know, I've met you before. And I was like, well, I just don't expect you to remember me. And he was like, do you remember me? And I was like, yeah, but you're Ed Sheeran. And he was like, I remember you. I was like, okay. Anyway. And so we had this thing called the cover challenge and we were telling him about it and he was like, oh, I want to do it. We're like, oh, you haven't had time to practice. And he was like, well, we've got a song, like, how can you print me the lyrics of Royals by Lord? And we were like, yes. And he goes, but I'll need my glasses. Can you ask my manager for my glasses? And we're like, okay. So we play this Avicii song, which is 2.5 minutes long. And in that 2.5 minutes, Ed Sheeran's like, I'm not being rude, but just give me 2 minutes just to figure this out. We're like, okay. So we just sit there in complete silence for like 2.5 minutes. Ed Sheeran's like, okay, cool, sweet, I've got it. We go back on air and he just does this cover of Lord Royals for the very first time, which if you YouTube it, you'll be able to find it. It's got millions of hits on it. And he just pulled it out of his ass. And then afterwards he was like, New Zealand is the only country that I see fire was big. I think I should play that while I'm here. And we were like, well, okay, yeah, you can definitely play whatever you want, Ed Sheeran. So then he plays I See Fire and the fans are loving it. And he goes, I'm having a really good time. I'm going to play a song off. He goes out, talks to his manager. And he's like, I'm going to play Tenerife Sea, which is off one of his albums that hadn't come out yet. And they're like, no, because it hasn't been released anywhere. Like, no, the record label won't like that. And Ed Sheeran goes, respectfully, they're my songs. I'll play whatever the fuck I want, and I want to play Tenerife Sea. And they were like, okay. So he comes in 6 back down, and Ed Sheeran then plays Tenerife Sea for the very first time in the entire world, literally this far away from me. And I'm just sitting here going, oh my God. I will never forget this moment in my life. And he was so normal that afterwards he's like, I'm just going to go to the toilet. Goes to the toilet. He's going for a wee in the urinal. And my husband's standing right next to him. And they just pee. And Ed Sheeran's a pee chatter, apparently. So they're like, ha, 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 like cracking up. And then he leaves. And we were like, what the heck just happened? Like, he was supposed to be there for half an hour. He ended up staying for an hour and a half. And he was like one of the biggest artists in the world at that time. He was just an absolute legend. Okay. We're getting closer to the worst ones. My most embarrassing one that I can think of. Oh no, yes, it's making my back instantly sweaty as soon as I think about it. Avril Lavigne. I love Avril Lavigne so much. I stand 10 toes down that her last album would have been one of the biggest pop albums of the year last year if it had been released by Olivia Rodrigo. It was fantastic. And when she released her album, The Best Damn Thing, the one with like Girlfriend on it and stuff, I got to take some winners over to Sydney. Now, I am a humongous Avril Lavigne fan. To meet her was everything. Why did I decide to wear flared light blue jeans, a short-sleeved white shirt, and a black waistcoat and look like a server? I don't know. I don't know why I chose that outfit. But I went. And afterwards I got to meet Avril Lavigne. And it all went well. And she loved me. And I got photos. And I got to meet her band. It was amazing. And then at the end I ruined it. Because I then turned to Avril Lavigne and I went to lightly tap her on the back and say, thanks, so nice to meet you. You should come to New Zealand. But in my nerves, instead of gently tapping her on the back, I gave her the heartiest tap on the back. That was actually like a full slap. That it sent her jumping forwards and her security guard stepped in. And I died. I was like, oh my God. And then the security guard just like swooped her off. And I was like, oh my God, I just hit Avril Lavigne. I just hit my pop hero. I will never recover. And you know what's embarrassing? She's never come to New Zealand. And I stand by the fact, because I've never had the chance to interview her and ask her, I think it's my fault that Avril Lavigne has never come to New Zealand, and it's because I accidentally hit her in Sydney, and I think she's scared and thinks we're all crazy, and I'm sorry. It's my bad. It's my bad, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, worst interviews ever. I'm going to start off with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. First of all, met Flea backstage. He was super rude. Heard Anthony Kiedis doing his vocal warm-ups. He did walk past and he was super lovely. But then I was here for moral support because Brad, who I was doing the night show with, was a huge Chili's fan, and he'd been given the task of 5 minutes with Chad from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We were told no photos, had to be 5 minutes, and Brad had this great idea of getting the listeners to write the questions. Now, Brad is so nervous that he's physically shaking. I go in, it's tense because Chad walks in, he's huge, the drummer of Red Hot Chili Peppers, looks like Will Ferrell. And he walks in and sits down. He's in a very playful, like, smart-ass move. And I'm kind of just sitting there like, oh, I'm here for moral support. Like, you know, he's the only one doing the talking. And I think that he thought it was weird that I wasn't doing any talking. But Brad gets into this interview. He's clearly so nervous. And then Chad can tell Brad's nervous. Or he makes a joke about how I'm like a hooker, which I was like, wouldn't sleep with you if you paid me, and which he found very funny. And then he ripped the questions out of Brad's hands and goes, are these really your questions? These are the questions you're going to ask me. And then just starts laughing at Brad. And Brad's like, no, well, like, these are written by the listeners, like, blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of come in, like, standing up for Brad. I was like, oh, come on, these are, like, the listeners' questions. You don't need to be like that. Oh, what a diva, blah, 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 to try and, like, ease the tension. And I think he was trying to have fun, but it just came across like he was a total douche. And so the interview ends and no one's allowed to get photos. And Brad, I can see, is devastated. And so I said, hey, Chad, can we get a photo? I think that Brad deserves one after that. And then we get a photo afterwards. And I'm looking gleeful, just like, hey. And Brad's face is just like, ah. It's so, like, he was just such a dick, and it ruined the Red Hot Chili Peppers for me. Like, if I had faced that later in my career, I would have given it back so much harder, but it was just like, ugh. But that's probably, like, whenever people ask me, like, my worst interview ever, that is the first one that comes to mind. But there are so many. I had one artist, I won't name a name. I will say that there are a bunch of people in the music industry that are creepy and that are dicks, and you have to just fucking avoid. Like, I've had a New Zealand musician, like, try and pash me, and I'm like, get the fuck off me, and a New Zealand rapper coming over and grabbing that person and being like, get the fuck off. And the thing that because I've never heard of this happening again with this person, this is why I will not name them, but I don't want to narrow it down by naming the rapper that came over, but it's one thing that even, like, when lots of Me Too stuff happened, I remember messaging this rapper and being like, how you were such an upstander that day for me. I'm forever grateful. But it wasn't just that. He then looked after me the whole night, and then the next day went to his record company and told them what happened, and the record company apologized to me. The person never apologized to me, but the record company did. And that would not have happened if that guy hadn't been there, and I'm forever grateful for that because he was such a legend. I also had, like, a couple of New Zealand musicians. It's just fun being a woman interviewer sometimes. Like, live on the red carpet. I wish I had the footage of it, but someone just, like, grabbed my ass mid-interview. That was fun. And you could see me being like, whoa, okay. Like, well, someone got drunk at the pre-party, and, like, then moving the interview along. But because people just thought it was funny. I think people are a lot better now. Like, this was, like, early 2000s vibes. And then I had, like, a musician. Oh my God, this is mortifying. I was working for a music TV show, and it was a Wellington band had come up, and they were doing a gig at the power station, and they had to come and do 4 Live where I was, and we were sitting on the couch. When this interview came through, I was like, our audience don't know who this is. Like, it's an old audience. We're getting school kids, like, they don't know who this is. Like, this is a waste of our time, but whatever. So I plan out the interview. I go in. I spend all day trying to learn about who these people are, and I start interviewing him, and he's so rude. He literally eye rolls me, can't be bothered answering questions, and the other guy with him was, like, super nice, and I could tell that even he was uncomfortable. And anyway, so he left. And I was so upset because I just felt humiliated because it's on TV, so you can literally see the eye rolls. You can't make it sound better when someone looks that bad. And anyway, so I'm crying and I'm saying, I'm never interviewing them again. Like, who the fuck do they think they are? Like, you can't treat people like that. I spent so long on that interview. And the nice one forgot his keys. And he walked back in. And he walked back in and was like, I forgot my keys. I was like, oh, that is here. And he was like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, it's fine. You were nice. And then he grabs his keys and leaves. And the funniest thing is then at the New Zealand Music Awards, about a month later, someone else that I worked with, who was a huge fan of this band, says to him, hey, like, we almost added your song on the edge. I fought for it so hard. I just think you guys are so amazing. And, like, I've been such a fan for a long time. And he, like, looks at him dead in the eyes and he's like, do you think I want to be played on the edge? Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, blah, 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 blah. And just, like, full went in to the point that someone from New Zealand here was like, whoa, 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 like, chill the fuck out. And it was just so crazy. And there's so many examples of that where you would have musicians that have been forced to do press and they absolutely cannot be fucked. And you just get to the point where you're like, so you don't like doing interviews, huh? And they're like, no. I'm like, let's just wrap it up and like then you can get on with your day. And they're like, thank you so much. Which I get, because for some people, like, it's high anxiety. But don't put people in the position where they don't want to do that. Like Lil Yachty, this is going to be my last story because this has gone on for way too long. Lil Yachty is like a rapper, and he comes in and he's fresh off the plane. He makes no eye contact with us. He has 2 phones. And during the entire interview that John O'Ben and I did, he's looking down, texting on 2 phones at the same time. And whenever you ask him questions, he's like, yeah, I was really excited. And he was like, bro, like, and so I ended up asking him in the interview, I was like, so are you, like, you don't like doing interviews? And he goes, no, it's not what I enjoy doing. Like, I get really self-conscious and I get really anxious, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's totally fine. Like, let's just, like, make this easy for you. But then Jono's like, who are you texting? Who are you texting on your phones? So funny. Because he was like, it was honestly an art to see him texting on 2 phones at the exact same time. And my last piece of advice will be to any person that gets interviewed, don't get stoned before the interview. It doesn't make you funnier. It makes you slower, and you look way more stoned under the lights than you think you do. And there's quite a few people that I've interviewed that are quite clearly stoned. Pretty sure I got like secondhand stoned sitting next to a New Zealand musician on a couch once doing an interview. It was crazy. But thank you so much for listening. That is my best, worst behind the scenes interview moments. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sure that more will come to me, so maybe we'll do another one next year. But I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and I will catch you again on Tuesday for your pop culture wrap. Bye!